Hey there, my name is Megan and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my April TBR, but before we go ahead and get on into my TBR, if you are not already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, as well as the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I post new bookish content. I post new videos every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday, and sometimes other days throughout the week. Also, don't forget to check down the description box below for links to all of my social medias, my Buddy Read Discord, and my Patreon, where you can be entered into winning book giveaways from me. I'm going to be starting with books that I'm currently in the middle of reading, and these obviously will be on my April TBR. And the first one is Fool's Quest by Robin Hobb. This is book 2 in the Fits in the Fool trilogy, and I just started chapter 9 this morning, so I'm a couple pages into chapter 9, and I read the first book in this series and finished it, did a whole review. So if you're interested in checking out that review, I'll link it up in the cards, as well as my Robin Hobb review playlist. I have slowly been getting through her books in her world, and this book picks up right where the first book left off, and chapter 8, oh my gosh, just like killed my heart. Like, I'm so invested in this book, in this series. It has been so good. Definitely is turning out to be one of Robin Hobb's like strongest series in my opinion, so I'm really excited to continue on with this series. I am tag teaming as of right now audiobook and physically reading this. I got my audiobook from my library, so I do have to return it eventually, but hopefully it'll help me get through a big chunk of this book before I have to return it. And the next book is a book that I think I've been reading since January, and I still have not finished it, and that is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is an adult sci-fi, and I am on page 180 still, so I don't think I've read any more of this since I last updated you guys, I think in my reading vlog a couple of weeks ago. I've been too busy reading Robin Hobb and Josiah Bancroft. But I am enjoying this. I was reading fantasy at the time and I just wasn't feeling sci-fi, but there's nothing inherently wrong with this book. It just wasn't something that I was in the mood to read, but I do want to finish it. And my friend Dom over at Dominish Books said that he really enjoyed this book and he reads way more fantasy than sci-fi, so I trust his opinion wholeheartedly. So I will definitely be prioritizing this in the month of April, and I'm gonna try and knock it out so I can get a full review for you guys. But if you're not familiar with what this book is about, it's about a man named Ryland who wakes up on a spaceship in the middle of outer space, and he can't remember who he is, why he's on this space shuttle, and we're slowly having to piece together what's going on, and there are flashbacks and things that he remembers as he's trying to piece back together exactly why he's floating in the middle of outer space, and it has to do with he is on a mission to save Earth from demise, and he wakes up on this spaceship only to find out that everybody that was on the ship with him has died and he is the only one, but he still has to save Earth, and he comes into contact with an unlikely accomplice that is going to help him save Earth, or that's the idea. And he just met his unlikely accomplice, or I'm assuming it's his accomplice, and that is where I'm at in the book. So definitely am going to be prioritizing this in the month of April. The next book I'm going to be reading is Gallium by V.E. Schwab. This is her newest book. It's an adult fantasy, and if you're interested in buddy reading Gallium with us, go ahead and look down in the description box for the link to my Buddy Read Discord. And the good thing about this book is that it doesn't look very long because it is interspersed with like quotes or pictures. So despite the fact that it's an adult fantasy, I don't think it's going to take us very long to read. And I love V.E. Schwab. She's one of my favorite authors, so I was super excited to have her newest release. But if you're not familiar with what this book is about, it follows a girl named Olivia who has lived most of her life away at this boarding school, and her mother is dead, and all she has left of her mother is this journal. And in this journal, she warns Olivia not to go back to Gallium, which is her family's estate. And one day, Olivia receives a letter requesting her to return to Gallium, and she decides to do so. And her only living family member is an estranged cousin, and that cousin said that they did not write that letter to Olivia. So someone is getting her to come back to this estate to investigate her mother's murder and the strange things that are going on at Gallium. And Olivia finds this locked door in the house and decides to enter it, and that's all I know. So it sounds like it's just going to be full of mystery, and I'm very excited to get to it. So definitely, if you're interested in buddy reading, join us. Very excited for this. And the next book was picked by one of my patrons, Anonymous. Every single month, one of my patrons gets to pick a book off of my physical TBR for me to read and review. And he chose The Queens of Innis Lear by Tessa Gratton. And I just wasn't planning on reading this book. When he chose it, I was like, That's a good choice. I really want to read this book. I picked this up off of Book Outlet several months ago for a couple dollars. It's been on my radar for like years, but all I know about this series is that it is a retelling of King Lear, and I've never actually read the play King Lear, and all I know about it is that it follows King Lear, and he has three daughters, and he is dividing up his kingdom into like three parts to give to all of his daughters, and he is slowly going mad or something of some sorts. And I think the three daughters start fighting among themselves for like access to the entire kingdom. I might be completely wrong, but that's my understanding of King Lear. Like I said, I don't know anything about the original story, so I don't really have any expectations going into this because I've never read the play. I've heard mixed opinions about this book, and I've never read anything by Tessa Gretton, so I'm really excited to have an introduction to the story or retelling of King Lear, as well as a introduction to a new author. So thank you, Anonymous, for choosing this. I'm very excited to get to it. And lastly, I need to choose a sequel out of my sequel TBR jar. So I have a ton of series that I am in the middle of, and I'm trying to slowly get through them. So I decided to put all of the sequels for all of the series that I'm reading into this TBR jar, and I pick one every month, and that is the sequel that I read for the month. And then in March, I ended up reading Arm of the Sphinx by Josiah Bancroft, which was book 2 of the Books of Babel series. So I ended up replacing Arm of the Sphinx with The Hod King, which is book 3. So every time I get through a sequel, obviously I will replenish the jar with the next sequel if there is a next sequel, if it's not like the finale in a series. So let's go ahead and see what sequel I'm going to be reading. Oh. Okay, we have Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty. So that is this one here. So this is book 2 in the Devabad trilogy. This is a Middle Eastern inspired desert fantasy, and I read City of Brass last year and enjoyed it. This is definitely a series that is just full of Middle Eastern mythology and imagery. The author has like beautiful writing, and I probably will need a refresher on City of Brass. It's been a while since I've read it, but as far as I know, it follows a main character that was living in Cairo, and she gets access to this mythical city called Devabad, and with the help of a jinn, she enters Devabad and kind of gets caught up in the machinations of the kingdom, and then she learns something about herself and how she and her magic is related to what's going on there and the people there. And yeah, good choice. I'm really excited to get to this, and then once I finish this, then maybe I'll purchase the third book in the series because I don't own it yet. Alright, you guys, that is it for my April TBR. Let me know in the comments some books that you're reading in April, or if you've read any of these and what you've thought of them, and I will see y'all in another video soon. Goodbye!